Hello everyone and welcome again to the 30-Day Blog Challenge weekly podcast. My name is João and this is a show for bloggers all about blogging. On this second episode, we'll be talking with Nora Dunn from the professionalhobo.com. As you know, starting a blog is a great idea. However, there are things that everyone should consider before diving in head first. Today, Nora and I are going to be discussing this, her blogging journey, and so much more. Okay, Nora, so again, welcome and thank you so much for being here with me. So for those listeners who are not familiar with your work, tell them a little bit about yourself and what the professionalhobo.com is all about.
Well, the professional hobo was born when in 2006, when I was running a busy financial planning practice in Toronto, Canada, and I had many activities that were keeping me very busy, and I'd achieved all the accoutrements of success as society might define it. But I found myself fundamentally unsatisfied. And one of the things that I realized that I was unsatisfied about was that I really wanted to travel the world. And I wanted to travel the world in a way that standard vacations was just not cutting it for me. I wanted to really immerse myself in different cultures and really experience what it's like to live around the world. So that inspired me to sell everything I own and start traveling the world long term. I had no idea how long that would last or where I would go or what I would do. But in the end, here we are a little more than 10 years later, and I'm still traveling the world full time.
So you say that traveling was your initial reason for getting into blogging, or not just traveling? You said you're
Sure,
not
absolutely.
satisfied with everything, right?
Yes, when I started traveling full time, I didn't know necessarily how I was going to sustain myself financially,
Mm.
and I started a travel blog as a simple way of just keeping in touch with family and friends and keeping a journal of my travels. This was back in 2006 when travel blogging
Wow.
as a career was really unheard of.
Yeah.
But as time went on, and I started to develop a freelance writing career as well, which would allow me to work from my laptop anywhere in the world that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That was when my blog started to become a little more than just a travel journal. And as the years went by, an entire industry around blogging and travel blogging built up around me, and very over time became a viable career.
So 11 years ago, did you know that you wanted to make this a full-time gig or just getting into it for fun?
In terms of blogging, 11 years ago, I didn't even realize it was possible to make a living.
Right.
And in fact, actually, 11 years ago, I'm not even really sure it was possible to make a living with blogging. It was
Mm-hmm.
still a very new industry at the time. I could barely define what a blog was. And I would imagine that there were many people who were like me as well, because blogging was still very new.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't necessarily start my blog or get into blogging when I started traveling as a way to make money, but certainly as the years went by, it became my career.
Right. So even before you begin blogging, you need to choose the perfect niche to succeed, right? It's one of the major keys to having a great site. How did you decide on the topic of your blog?
I kind of fell into the topic of my blog in that I was busy developing a freelance writing career,
Mm.
and I found myself parlaying my financial expertise from formerly being a certified financial planner. So
Mm-hmm.
I found myself writing for travel publications about finance, and I was writing for finance publications about travel.
Mm.
And eventually, the two of those topics married really nicely on my website,
Right.
which teaches people how to travel full time in a financially sustainable way.
Right. And in a certain way, you want to help people to do the same, right?
Absolutely.
So in your early days, how much time would you say you went into getting the professionalhobo.com up and running? So since the moment you said, all right, I wanted to make a blog until the professionalhobo.com is up and running.
Well, when I started blogging, I started with a free blogspot platform,
Mm.
and really I spent a fair bit of time on it, purely out of passion, purely as a hobby, more
Mm-hmm.
so than as a career. It wasn't until a couple of years later that I decided to migrate this blogspot platform to my own website, which was I then called theprofessionalhobo.com, and that was, I believe, that was in 2008 that I did that,
Right.
maybe 2009.
Mm-hmm. And there are a few costs that people may run into when building a blog, and a lot of people are not aware of this, right? Did you incur with a lot of costs in the beginning stage of this venture or no?
In the beginning stage, it wasn't very expensive.
No.
I bought a domain which was quite inexpensive and costs me something like $15 a year,
Oh wow.
and then I went with a very basic hosting company that cost me maybe $100 a year.
So
So for the first bunch of years, really, I didn't have to spend much more than that to keep my blog up and going.
mm,
Since then, I have certainly put more time and energy and money into my web business, and most recently, as in literally within the last week, I've switched over to a managed WordPress hosting service.
mm,
So, and that promises to I'm outsourcing a lot of the technical side of managing the hosting platform, as well as it's a much more sophisticated hosting platform. So now for me, instead of spending $100 a year on hosting, I'm actually spending closer to $100 a month on hosting.
oh wow. Now that you are a well-known expert in travel and personal finance and lifestyle design, people rely on you for fresh ideas, right? What's your plan to continually come up with creative and fresh content for your blog? That's a hard task, right?
It can be difficult, certainly. The nice thing is when I'm actively traveling and on the road, I receive inspiration
Right.
by virtue of the things that I'm doing. Just a week ago, I landed in Japan, and I'm going to be here for a couple of months. And in the last week alone, I find myself discovering new things every day about life in this new place. So, by virtue of that alone, I'm able to come up with lots of creative ideas
Mm-hmm.
for new content. And then also too by a function of my online conversations with colleagues, and reading other blogs and websites. As long as I keep my finger on the pulse, I generally find myself coming up with ideas for content that's going to be useful to my readers.
Because you're always on the move and you've you receive all this inspiration and all this to come up with fresh content, right? Now let's talk a bit about your strategy. Sticking to a solid strategy can be difficult. What do you do to stay organized and on track?
That's a that's a strategy. It's a constantly evolving and changing
Right.
thing. In terms of what I use, I'm generally a pretty organized person, and I, at the moment, run a pretty primitive system where I don't really use a lot of websites or apps or programs to help me stay organized.
Mm.
Sometimes something as simple as a notebook,
A notebook.
and an app that keeps me on top of my reminders is good enough for me.
Right. And what about the manage of the look and feel of your website? Is it you that do this, or do you have someone to do it, or who takes care of the design of your website?
In terms of the website design, I did a redesign probably about 5 years ago, and in fact, actually, my website is due for a redesign again. So I'm actually currently shopping around now for designers who can help me update my look. And this is something that I certainly think is necessary to do every few years, probably every 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a rapidly changing industry that what works and what doesn't work in terms of layout and design regularly changes. So for me, I outsource this because this is far from my area of expertise.
So for those new bloggers, getting their content seen can be a struggle. How do you do to distribute and promote your content? Do you
I
have
have
a
a
strategy for
few.
that, or?
I have a few methods of distributing and promoting my content. Social media is certainly quite effective. I have a
Right.
very active Facebook and Twitter account. I also use Google Plus.
Mm-hmm.
I also have an email list, a newsletter list. I send out a monthly newsletter that to about 10,000 subscribers that I promote my content to.
Right. And the good thing about social media is that's free, right?
Absolutely.
Right. All right. We're nearing the end of the show. Let's wrap it up with a few fun rapid fire questions. Nora, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great. Let's do it. So first question: who is your blogging hero and why?
I
Do you
have many
a
blogging
Oh,
heroes.
all right.
I
Just
do,
go
but
ahead
I
and
would.
tell us two or three. Or,
All right. Well, I would say Nomadic Matt, of course, has one of the leading
of
travel
course.
blogs in the universe, and he's been traveling about as long as I have, so I consider him a colleague of many years.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite quote? If so, what is it?
There's a quote by, I believe it's Benjamin Franklin, that is, "Do not squander time." Oh, hold on, wait a minute. Oh no, I don't remember the quote. Hang on.
Don't worry
Yes.
about it.
Here's the quote. The quote is, "Dost thou love life? If so, then do not squander time, for that is the stuff that life is made of."
Oh wow. Alright, so let's pretend, Nora, let's pretend that you decide to start a new blog today or tomorrow. What would your new blog be about? And you cannot answer traveling.
And I don't have anything
You-
to write about.
Absolutely anything.
I, yeah, I write about my life, and my life is about
Perfect.
travel, lifestyle design, and providing inspiration for people who want to do the same thing.
That's kind of what you do now, but that's alright. I'll let that pass. Where do you see yourself and your blog in 5 years?
That's an excellent question. I'm currently doing a lot of top-down strategy work right now with regards to where my blog will be. In an ideal world, I would be a blogging superstar goddess.
Oh wow. And what's the best thing about being a blogger?
The freedom of lifestyle and the freedom of location.
And finally, last question. Can you give our listeners 3 or more tips for starting out on their blogging journey?
Don't try to reinvent the wheel. And in so
Right.
doing, make sure you rely on other experts and take courses to learn what you need to know. Number 2, outsource the things that you don't know and be prepared to invest in it. And number 3, treat your blog as a business.
So there you go, everyone. Take your blogging journey seriously, and you're halfway through success. I'd like to thank Nora Dunn from theprofessionalhobo.com. Nora, again, thank you so much for your time. It was great, and I hope to talk to you soon.
It's been a pleasure.
And of course, thanks to you, the listener, for tuning in to the 30-day blog challenge. Don't forget to go watch theprofessionalhobo.com. I mean, we're talking of one of the most experienced travelers bloggers out there. If you're looking for further tips and tricks regarding today's show, we have just created an epic new guide on things to consider before starting a blog. Click on the link below to check it out. Remember, come back every Wednesday for more exciting interviews with some of the top bloggers on the web. Until next time, blog on and blog often.